we have Andy Rosenberg here, an estate planning lawyer in Coral Springs. Andy, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Adam. How you doing?
Good, good. So you and I, we've known each other for about 6-7 months now or so, right?
Yes.
And, our offices are pretty close to each other. I've gotten to know you, know about your firm. Love some of the cool marketing stuff that you're doing. You do some really cool videos and give a lot of great info to your list. I'm glad to have you on so we can talk a little bit about estate planning, you and the firm, and what's going on with this whole coronavirus thing. Why don't you tell everybody who you are and and what you do?
Okay, you got it. Yeah. So again, thanks for having me, Adam. Again, my name's Andy Rosenberg. I'm an attorney. My offices are in the Coral Springs area, but I handle clients all throughout the state. I'm originally from Indiana. Yes, there are Jews from Indiana, believe it or not. And I met my wife at Indiana University, and she's from South Florida. So that's how I ended up down here in the South Florida region. I've been doing estate planning for a long time. I'm a lot older than you, Adam, so I've been doing it for 20 plus years or more. But this whole scenario that's going on right now, none of us have ever lived through. In fact, I was speaking to my father up in Indianapolis, who's 88 years old, and I asked him the other day, I said, Dad, you've lived a long life. Have you ever seen anything like this that we're experiencing in the United States with stayed home and people not working and people dying? And he said, never. I've never seen anything like this. So we're all in uncharted territory, and you and I are experiencing it day to day.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. It's to me, it's crazy. I actually started my law firm a few months before the '08 recession. So as a young baby lawyer, 2 years in, I left the state attorney's office thinking everything's great. And then 4 months later, Lehman Brothers goes out and the market crashes. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And I survived that, but that was still a recession that was gradual. This was just, kind of snap your fingers and overnight, the economy's gone for most industries. For us with criminal defense, sure, we're getting some domestics and getting some other things, but people aren't being social. They're not going out to bars, clubs. They're not in gatherings. They're not. There's no proactive policing right now. So a lot of our business has dropped temporarily, but I've heard that a lot of estate planning, people are now thinking about their mortality. They're thinking about their future, their family's future, and what to do and be prepared. I've always said that estate planning is important, but for a lot of people, not urgent. And right. Now I think there's quite an urgency. So tell us, what have you seen from clients over the last month? What have you heard?
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting. I'll give you a good example. I had a client that I've been trying to get the final amount, a bit of information on for probably 8 to 9 months. I'm not exaggerating. They just have procrastinated forever. And when this coronavirus hit, I got a call within a week after the coronavirus hit, when everyone was basically at stay at home, and they said, we need to get this done like yesterday. So it's kind of funny. It's sad that It took something like this to cause someone to move with their estate planning documents. But that's kind of, in a nutshell, Adam, what I'm seeing is that people have procrastinated. Listen, no one likes to talk about their own mortality. It's not an exciting topic. I mean, you're dealing with things that have to happen. I mean, if someone gets a ticket, if someone has a DUI, a criminal offense, there's time limits and issues that you have to deal with. With estate planning, we don't have any of that normally. And so normally it's up to someone having something happen within their family, or someone close to them. Maybe they got a friend that got diagnosed with cancer, or they have a relative that passed away that they were close to. Those are the types of events that usually cause someone to think about, well, you know what? I am mortal. I need to maybe take care of my estate plan. And that's kind of what's happened with this coronavirus that's going on right now, is that people are freaking out and are realizing, holy crap, this can happen to any of us. and I need to take care of my estate plan. So I'm seeing people starting to call and get nervous and saying, what can we do, and what do we need to get done? What's the most important things to get done, and how do we get them done as soon as possible?
So then, Andy, what advice do you have for people that are sitting at home, watching the news, doing, freaking out a little bit, and that don't have either any estate plan or an up-to-date, estate plan, right? They may have made one back in 2010, and of course, life has changed a bit. So what advice do you have for people during this coronavirus?
My advice is we all have a lot more time on our hands right now, and this is something that needs to be addressed. So if you have children that are under 18, you need to take care of this stuff immediately. If you're single, you need to take care of this stuff immediately, because if something happens, who's going to help take care of you? And that, there's lots of documents that are really important when you're dealing with an estate plan. But I would say, Adam, that there's probably 2 to 3 documents that are really important right now when it comes to this time period that we're in, as far as dealing with the coronavirus. And then taking care of those documents are really important. And then you need to tackle the rest of the estate plan later if you can only deal with those documents now. And the 2 main documents, there's 2 to 3 main documents that I feel are vitally important in this pandemic that we're in. One is a durable power of attorney, another is a healthcare surrogate, and the third is a living will for Florida. Those are 3 really important documents that you need to have. If you have kids, then it's really important to deal with the complete estate plan, and that might mean getting a will done and or getting a trust done of some sort as well. And I can talk about the importance and why it's so important for all of those documents and how it works in regards to this coronavirus and this pandemic that we're all living through.
Well, Andy, let's say I'm sitting at home, I'm watching this video, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have these 3 essential documents. What's the process, and how quickly can you get that done?
Well, you need to contact an attorney. I'm available if you need to call me. My phone number is 954-755-7803. My office is up and running, as is yours. My phones are being picked up by my staff. They're working remotely. We were prepared for this entire situation. I had no idea this was going to happen. I'm getting a little off track, but just before we get into how quickly you can get it done, let me just tell you about what happened with us. We went paperless. My office went paperless at the end of last year for all our documentation, and our phone system has been set up for quite a while for remote. And in fact, I've had my staff work once a week remotely from home because they have kids. So I wanted to have them have the flexibility. So it was really easy for us to transition to this situation where we all could work remotely, because it's all set up and remote access. So we had no problem with this transition, and we're up and running now. Now, as far as getting these documents done quickly, they can get done very quickly. The problem that we're having, Adam, is certain documents need to be witnessed and notarized.
Right.
And so it's become difficult to get that done, because you're not allowed to really have, contact with the client. You got to keep that 6-foot social distance situation.
Right.
So it's been hard. And as an example, in my office that I'm in, it's an executive office suite scenario. And the building owner has basically said no one is allowed in our building except for the people that work here, period. So I am actually doing legal signings outside in the client's cars.
Okay, so they'll drive through will signing.
So a drive-through will sign. In fact, I did that this morning. I had a client come in. They called. They said they're here. They came. I went out with the documents with my mask and gloves right here.
Okay.
And I have a separate pen that I use, and I give it to the client because I don't want it after it's been used. They are signing the documents in their car. I'm explaining to them what they're signing. They're signing where they need to sign. And I have my notary and my witnesses are sitting in the waiting room, and they could see from a distance that they're being signed. Then I bring it into the office, and the witnesses witness it, and the notary notarizes it. And then I scan it in, and then I have a copy, and then I give the originals back to the client in the car, and the client leaves. So I'm doing it, I guess, drive-through, for lack of a better term.
Well, what's the quote? Necessity is the mother of all invention, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're all being safe, but life goes on. People need, lawyers. People need, just like restaurants have changed and adapted for the time being. So, it is what it is, right? So I love the fact that you're doing that, because
I got news for you. It was hard the other day. It was about 90 degrees out, and I'm out there for about 20 minutes explaining and having them sign documents. So I'm sweating everywhere. But you know what? We got the job done. That's all that matters.
right. Well, and Andy, there's probably other estate planning lawyers that have just buried their head in the sand and maybe even closed up shop in a matter of a month, or just saying they're not going to do anything. So imagine all their clients just being left out. So the fact that you're trying and you're still helping your people, the people that need you, I think it's fantastic. It's amazing. That's what being a community leader is all about. So
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I love it. Yeah.
I will tell you, here's something interesting. Here's an interesting tidbit about the estate planning right now. Florida passed in January of last year. They passed electronic will signing. Okay, so they're one of the few states in the entire country that allows that. So what happens is you can sign the will electronically through Zoom or whatever you want to do. And it sounds like a great idea, and it's wonderful that it's been approved. I mean, the Florida law hasn't changed since it was in the 1800s, probably, as far as the execution.
And usually the state of Florida is a little slow legally to change. We're not such a progressive state, so that's interesting that they did.
We're only one of, I want to say there's about 4 states that do this. However, it's not as good as it sounds. And the reason is that the way that Florida passed the law is there's a lot of restrictions on how it can get done, an electronic will signing. And it's basically gotten to a point where it's impossible to do unless you're a major company that deals with it. Because, for an example, it has to be recorded, it has to be backed up and saved through this special process. And there's all sorts of steps that have to be done, and it has to be held by a custodian. And so it gets very expensive, and the only types of custodians out there that are doing this are major institutions, and it's very expensive. So the practicality of doing this electronic will signing really doesn't exist. Just it's nice that they approved it, but they put so many limitations on it that it's almost impossible. So you will not see it done very often at all in Florida.
Right. Okay.
That's Florida. Now, the other states that have passed their own electronic will signing maybe have less stringent standards. So you're right, Adam. Florida's really slow, and they were fast to act on this electronic will, but they were slow in that they put so many restrictions on it that it basically makes it null and void almost.
Well, if it was up to me as just the consumer, right? I like the Andy Rosenberg drive-through will signing. I mean, Andy, I think you got to look at maybe a fast food restaurant that's gone out of business. You buy it up, and it can be the law office of Andy Rosenberg drive-through will signing, and you can just like a Starbucks or a McDonald's, just have them come on in.
Let's hope the world doesn't come down to that, but you never know. You never know.
Right.
Let's hope we all get back to a new normal soon.
Right. Well, so I mean, here you and I are having a conversation through Zoom, right? And before we even went on, we were talking a little bit about the new normal. So what do you think the future holds for estate planning?
Well, I think estate planning has become more of the forefront for a lot of the different areas of the law because of this concern and the mortality issues of the coronavirus and the number of deaths that are rising, and the fact that it's happening to young people as well as older people. So none of us are safe from this virus. So because of that, estate planning has become more popular overnight, and it was not popular before this. Trust me, it's not. It's like going to the dentist. You need to get it done. No one likes to get it done, but they go every now and then because it's required. Well, usually in estate planning, you need a will, you need to do durable powers, all that, but You avoid it until something tragic happens. And usually then it's too late. But this is a situation where obviously now it's become a very vital part of the law. And that, maybe that's why we're considered essential. This area of the law is essential right now. But Adam, let's talk about, I mentioned it prior, the documents, the 3 documents that I think that really need to get done. One is the durable power of attorney, 2 is a healthcare surrogate, and the 3rd is the living will. Those are the 3 documents right now that you really need to get done. And let me explain in layman's term what each one is so that they understand it. And then if I'm boring you, tell me. We'll try and liven it up.
Andy, this is important stuff. Look, people assume that all even lawyers know everything, right? So you ask me anything about criminal defense, DUI defense, I'll tell you. People say, hey, what about estate planning? I have no idea. I say, call Andy. I don't know. So if I don't know and it's important, I'm sure everybody listening to this, they're going to need to know. And that's why we're doing this, because people are scared, they're nervous, and they need knowledge as opposed to just, numbers about the coronavirus and stuff like that. They need real life practical knowledge. So tell us why they're important. We need to know.
Okay. And vice versa, by the way. I had known nothing about criminal law or the tickets and all that. I just call Adam. Right. All right. So the durable power of attorney is how I always describe it to my clients is, imagine if you're in a car accident and you become unconscious and you can't communicate with us. Okay. You're unable to talk and communicate with us. Who's going to handle paying your bills, writing the checks, going to the bank, doing all these financial things that need to get done? Because those things will continue even though you're unconscious and you can't communicate. So the durable power of attorney is meant just for financial affairs. That's all it's for. You're naming someone as a person to slide up into your shoes if you can't communicate and handle your own affairs, and to take care of all your financial affairs while you're unable to. And that's really the purpose of the durable power. Now, what's interesting is the durable power of attorney has changed several years. Now it's several years ago. I'm showing my age. But back, I believe in 2010, 2011, they changed the laws in Florida with the durable power of attorney. It used to be called what's called a springing power of attorney. Springing durable power of attorney. This is how it was before. Okay. And it's changed. And I don't think it's better. I think it actually was worse. But what happened before the new law was you can create this power of attorney and you can name your spouse or a relative or a friend or whoever you want to name as the power of attorney. And they wouldn't be able to handle your financial affairs until it's proven by a doctor that you're unfit to handle your affairs. So what it means is that it doesn't spring to life until you're disabled. Okay. Does that make sense?
Right.
That's how the law...
I can see there being a lot of red tape involved, and I can see that being a slow mechanism.
Yeah, but that's how the law was.
Okay.
And so it really protected you because obviously if you would need a doctor's note, you need all sorts of things for someone to go to a bank and to get money out of your account or whatever is needed.
Okay.
But now the law changed many years ago, and they got rid of that springing power of attorney. Now, when you do a power of attorney, as soon as you sign it, it's up and running. And it works whether you're disabled or you're not disabled. When you become disabled, it will continue to work. That's the difference.
So there's potential for abuse and fraud, where if that happens, call me. But
right, exactly.
But also it makes it a lot easier in case of emergency. Right.
Yes. So it's a really important document because imagine right now if, God forbid, someone has the coronavirus. Okay, they're not allowed to go out and do things, right? And what happens if they need to go out and go to the bank and withdraw money or pay bills and they're not getting the bills at home or whatever it can imagine, or you're on a ventilator from this thing, God forbid, right? Because that's what some people that are getting really sick get put on that ventilator. what are you going to do if you don't have that power of attorney? It's a major problem. And the reason it's a major problem is that you'd have to go through the court system, the guardianship court and everything else. And that's very time consuming. And as you know, the courts are really having an issue right now with this as well, with the virus. And most of the courts aren't even open at this point. So you really don't want to be caught with not having the power of attorney. Now, what's also really important is you need to name, in my opinion, you should probably name 2 successor power of attorneys. Okay. So you should probably name, if you're married, you name your spouse, and then you should name an alternate just in case.
Right.
It's really important to have 2, in my opinion. Now, the other question is, does it have to be notarized? And the laws of Florida say we have to have 2 witnesses and a notary for a valid, durable power of attorney. That's the law in Florida. That's not the same law with what we're going to talk about now, which is the healthcare surrogate.
Okay.
Okay. The healthcare surrogate. So we talked about the durable power. Durable power is dealing with finances. What happens if the same scenario where you're unconscious, you can't communicate with us, and you can't make your healthcare decisions?
Right.
That's what the healthcare surrogate does. You name someone to step into your shoes and to deal with healthcare decisions. Now, the requirements for a healthcare surrogate are 2 witnesses. It doesn't need to be notarized technically. So it's a little less stringent. So technically, you could potentially try and do that on your own, but I don't recommend it. Obviously, these are important documents. But those 2 documents are really important. And again, you should have 2 people, because if one can't handle being the healthcare surrogate, then you deal with the other person. All right?
Makes total sense.
So those are the 2 really important documents. The third document, unfortunately, it's been used a lot in this situation, is the living will. And that's the scenario, it's before your time, Adam, but I don't know if you remember the Supreme Court case of Terry Schiavo.
Yes, I'm not that young.
Okay.
I remember that.
I call the living will the Terry Schiavo document, the pull the plug document, the dying with dignity document. They're all the same thing. But basically what the living will does is you're telling us, while you're of sound mind, if you're ever put on life support, and the doctors first medically, it's always important, the doctors have to medically determine first that there's nothing more they can do.
Okay.
Then you've told us in advance, while you're of sound mind, whether you want to remain on life support or you want it taken away.
Okay.
And so the family doesn't have to make that decision. So that's really what is the living will. So those are the 3 documents: the durable power, healthcare surrogate, living will. Those are the 3 documents that I think everybody needs to have right now. There's other documents for a complete estate plan. There's the will, there's a trust, and all these other things. That gets into more detail. We don't need to go into that right now, but eventually you need to have all of that done. It might not require a trust, but you definitely will need a will done and maybe a trust in addition. But if you had to ask me what 3 things do I need to have right now, those are the 3.
Okay. So now, what about people who say, well, I'm just going to Google it, or I'm going to go on, buy these forms on LegalZoom. I don't want to spend the money for an attorney. So why is a lawyer so much better than Googling it or, trying to the DIY? Well, because already I've learned so much from you already. So I feel like I've gotten tremendous value that I wouldn't get from a LegalZoom, but so much more if I was going through the process. Why is it essential to have a lawyer?
Well, it's important to have a lawyer so that they can make sure, number one, that the Florida legal requirements are done correctly. Okay. Like I told you before, the durable power requires 2 witnesses plus the notary. Okay. I didn't tell you was that one of the witnesses, it better not be a blood relative. So there's a lot of formalities that you need to know and that you wouldn't know if you did it on your own.
Okay.
Number 2, I always liken estate planning to buying a house. How often do we usually buy a house? Maybe 2 times, 3 times during our lifetime? Probably.
Right.
So it's not that often. You shouldn't be doing your estate planning that often. So you need to, it's beneficial for you to make sure it's done correctly and that you deal with all of the issues that are involved in the estate plan, you meet with an attorney that's competent in that area. You're going to pay more. There's no question about it. If you do it yourself, you're going to pay a couple $100 or whatever it might be online to do things, but you'll pay more with an attorney. But you need to do that, in my opinion, to make sure everything's done correctly and that the attorney can bring up all the different options that might occur that you might not think about, especially when you're dealing with a will and you're dealing with a trust. There's a lot of options that are involved in that area, which is a whole separate discussion. But that's my response to the do-it-yourselfers out there. Listen, you can always try and do it yourself, but you run the risk of it not being proper and valid.
Right. No, I agree. You know, I feel like you're going to pay now or pay later. So you might as well have it done right the first time, you know, and get that advice, because, you know, a lawyer's, what I tell everybody when, you know, they come to meet with me too, is we're not just doing the work, we're the chief strategist. You know, we're thinking about different options and putting the plan together, whether it's criminal defense or for you with an estate plan. It makes total sense to me that you want to have that trusted advisor because it's not a one size fits all, right? All of us are different. Our families are different. Our financial situations, our health is all different. And personally, I think, you know, it's essential to have a lawyer for that. So
yes, I agree. Let me interrupt you for a minute. I apologize. Let's quickly talk about two other things. I mentioned the will, saying that, you know, I don't think it's that important that you get that done right away. It's very important to get done. But if anyone out there has children that are under the age of 18, it's actually very important to get the will done as well, because we have what's called guardianship. So what happens in the state of Florida is that if you pass away, God forbid, with this virus, if you catch it and you pass away, and you have kids that are under the age of 18, they're considered minors in the eyes of the state of Florida. And so the question becomes, where do those kids go? Who takes care of them if you are no longer around? And that's where in the will, you have language in the will that takes care of that. It's called guardianship language. And it's called guardianship of the person and guardianship of the property. Guardianship of the person is, who do you want your child to stay with, right?
Right.
And then the property is, who do you want to financially look over your assets that are for the benefit of your child? So if you do have children under 18, it also is really important in this time period to think about getting a will done if you haven't had it done. Otherwise, the state of Florida is going to tell you where everybody goes.
Right. We don't want that, right? We want to make our own decisions.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to bring out that's important is it has nothing to do with estate planning as far as like legal documents, but it's really important. And I'm a prime example. I have an Excel sheet where I have all my passwords for all my accounts and everything. You know, it's protected and stuff. But the point is that you need to make sure that you have all of your retirement accounts, your bank accounts, you know, all your assets, your life insurance, all these things. You need to make sure that your loved ones know where to get in contact with all these assets are. So God forbid if something happens to you, have it organized somewhere where they know what your account number is, they know what the phone number is, and they know what it's about, so that someone you trust will have the ability to get to these types of assets if something were to happen to you. So it's more of gathering all these accounts all over the place and bringing them together under one roof and making sure that someone knows where those important passwords are, et cetera, to get access if it's needed. And that doesn't mean leaving it in a safe deposit box because at a bank, because a lot of times you don't put that person's name on the safe deposit box. Right. They won't be able to get access to that safe deposit box to get the account.
Right.
So, yeah, that requires a whole nother thing. So the point is, it's really important to gather all these lists and to put it together under one sheet of paper and protect it and have it somewhere and make sure someone knows where it is if something were to happen to you. And that's not a legal thing. That's more of a practicality thing.
Right. I feel like I've learned so much just in talking with you, Andy. I think it's been absolutely fantastic. You know, again, this is stuff that up until a month or 2 weeks or a month or two ago, was important but not really urgent for so many people, and now it's important. It is urgent. People need to get their affairs in order. Look, just in case, right? Everybody wants to stay safe, but you never know what's going to happen. So it's better to prepare. I've learned so much. So for everybody listening to this, Andy, tell us again, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is phone number. Office number is 954-755-7803. And always by email, it's andrew@rosenberglawfirm.net. Rosenberg is ROSEN, B as in boy, ERG. rosenberglawfirm.net.
.net. Okay, we gotta remember the .net. And you're up and running. You just had a document signing through the mobile doc unit this morning. So that's fantastic. We'll definitely let everybody know about this, and not now, then when, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Adam. I hope I help educate some people out there.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I've learned a ton, because before this, I didn't know much about that area of law. So I have, and I'm sure everyone else will really appreciate it. So thanks so much, Andy.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
My pleasure. Great seeing you again. Stay safe.
You too. Bye.
All right. Take care.